Hello everybody, so I hope this is recording this time. I'm assuming the previous video did not. But anyway, this is Chris. I am back after a long hiatus away from YouTube, working on different little side projects and this and this and that. So I am back to bring sewing knowledge and all of that to you guys. Hopefully you're not getting too much nostril here. But anyway, um, anywho, and you have to excuse my room. It's always been a mess, even on my past videos, depending on what you can see. It's probably going to still be a mess in the future. But anyway, I always got different ideas, and, I kind of put tidying up, kind of on the back burner. But anyway, so please forgive me. I hope that doesn't change what you get out of my videos. But anywho, so in this video, we're going to be talking about what's the difference between a circle and a gathered skirt. I drew these two little sketches a couple minutes ago, just to kind of illustrate my point a little bit. So this, of course, is the circle skirt on the left, and this is the gathered skirt that I drew on the right. So the main basic difference is a circle skirt is just a piece of fabric that is derived from a circle or parts of a circle, and we'll talk about that in a future video that's going to be part of this series. So that's the other thing I'm going to do. This is going to be, I'm going to chop up all of these into like a series of videos, so you can get more interest, and then I can also keep it a little more specific, and you don't have to watch a 30, 40, 50-minute video just to get one little piece of knowledge. So hopefully that works out. And this is going to be unedited, that way it can and just kind of make sure I get this done and get it out, and I don't have to overthink it too much. So anywho, but yeah, so a circle skirt is a skirt that is derived from a circular piece of fabric that is cut either all I suppose you can do it in one piece, but so you would have a seam there, and of course you could just cut that, and then you could sew those two edges together. So technically you could do it off of just one piece of fabric, and then there are different ways that you can fold a square, and so if I drew that over here, there are different ways that you could fold a square, and then you could essentially just draft a quarter of the circle, and let's say this edge is going to be just like your center back or something, and that's where you're going to sew it together. So all of this extra could be, or not all of this extra, all the folds and stuff that you have could end up being what the actual skirt is coming from. But at least that way you have one big skirt. You can cut this part off because you won't need that. You can cut this part off because you won't need that. And now you have your wonderful circle skirt. Now, in order to make a handkerchief hem, you still get rid of that because this is what's going to sew to the waist. But you could actually keep this edge, and you'll have, I think, 3 or 4 edges or whatever. Well, yeah, 4 edges because it'll be the 4 corners of the square. And then that will become your handkerchief edge. So anyway, let's see here. Now, a gathered skirt is and can be similar to this, and we'll go into the ways that it can be similar or whatever in the future. But right now, just to make this easy, a gathered skirt is going to be a skirt that you essentially, in its most basic form, get from just a rectangular piece of fabric that is much bigger than you need it. So for instance, like in the past, Larry, my friend and business partner, and some of the other stuff I work on, he told me a while back, in order to make the gathers fairly full, you'd like to go off of a basis of making it 3 times as big as what you need. So let's say you're sewing this to her waist, and let's say her waist is 26 or whatever, and we'll put the waist down here. So we'll assume they're the same size. We'll assume we got 36, 26, 36 or whatever for bust, waist, and hip. Okay, so if we're sewing this to the waist, then we'll say that this is the seam that's going to be to the waist. This is the bottom of the skirt, the hem or whatever. instead of making this 26 inches, we'll multiply that by 3. And let me see, do I have my calculator up here? I do not have my calculator up. So 26 times 3. Let's see, and y'all forgive me if I mess up on my math in front of y'all. 6 times 3 is 18. We got 1, maybe 6, 7. So 78. So instead of making this 26 inches, we'll make it 78 inches. So times 3 equals 78. And so this whole edge needs to be 78 inches long. And then we're going to gather it down. And those are my little gathering symbols. We're going to gather this down. And we're going to sew it to this. And then we're just going to estimate, or we're going to assume that we only want one center back seam. So this is going to be seam allowance, and that's going to be seam allowance. At the bottom here, maybe we'll do an inch hem or something, interesting. And then this is going to be sewn into the waist. So that's the main difference. And usually with, if you're doing a gathered skirt and it's just one big rectangle or something, you can have the grain line go this way, or you can have the grain line go this way. And either way, it's not really going to affect the way it hangs too much. And that's the main difference. Other than the fact that it's gathered and all of your fullness comes from how big a piece of fabric you used. That's one of the differences. The other difference is the fact that the grain line is going to affect the way a circle skirt looks way more than a gathered skirt. Just because usually with a gathered skirt, if you're just doing something basic like this, you can only get this fabric out of a couple different ways. So, I mean, you could put this on a bias. It's just where you're going to be able to put this big old 78-inch long piece of fabric, or this pattern piece that you need. And really, essentially, you could turn your fabric like this, and let's say the skirt we need it to be 26 inches long. Okay, so, and maybe you have a 52-inch wide piece of fabric. So that's actually about half. So if this is your piece of fabric, then you can set your pattern piece like this, and let's say this is your actual grain line on your piece of fabric. Then you could put your pattern piece down here, cut it out, and really, this is another little kind of insider thing, but you can use the selvage edge here, just because 9 times out of 10 the selvage will get hidden in the gathers and in all the other stuff, Or you could flip it and use the selvage as the hem. Because with this inch down here, you're going to end up folding that under anyway, and that'll keep you from having a raw edge either up there or down there. I personally might use it here, just depending on how tight the selvage is woven, because some selvages look real crazy, and it might actually mess up the way, that your skirt runs. And pardon me, in my personal life, I do curse a little bit. So, but I'll try to keep these videos fairly clean. But excuse me if I slip up here and there. But anyway, so yeah, depending on how tightly the selvage is woven, it might mess up the hang of it a little bit, or the grain line. So you might have to scoot your pattern piece over just a little bit, just so you can get away from that selvage edge. So play it by ear, But if you have a pattern piece that's this big and it's 78 inches long, there aren't a lot of fabrics that are made really, really wide that you could turn it this way and have the length of the fabric going that way, and you could just get that. So that way you only use 26 inches down into the fabric, but out into the width of the fabric, you'll just get this nice little section, and then you'll still have all this fabric left. So sadly, it doesn't always work out like that. So if your pattern piece is going to be really long, turn it this way, cut it out, blah, 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 blah. So 9 times out of 10 with gathered things, you're going to use straight grain lines or, you know, vertical or horizontally to get the best use out of your fabric so you can get the whole piece on there. Then here, let's see, on this one, what you can do on this one, 9 times out of 10, the grain line will vary. So, like for instance, since this is the center back, this could be the direction of the grain line. And if we opened it up, and let's say we had a big piece of fabric like this, and we are looking at this. So essentially this is our grain line here. Okay. And this is what it's going to end up looking like once it's cut out. That, connect those two, connect that, and that. Okay. Once again, pardon me for my ugly circles. This is the edge that's going to sew to the waist. And then this edge here is going to be your hemline. So you have to kind of make sure you make the pattern long enough to accompany the hem and all of that, just like you would with this. So, you know, it's no different. But the difference here is unless you plan to gather it, you can just make your circle skirt without the gathers. And you can use less fabric if you're not planning to gather this as well, because you can gather a circle skirt. Just make the waist bigger than you need it, and then you can gather it down and still also get the nice pretty flows. So anyway, but yeah, so your fullness is going to come from, or the appearance of the fullness is going to come from how wide the hem ends up being, and also the fact that this is, you know, your straight grain, and even though that one in the picture is the opposite grain, you could do this as well and have a diagonal grain. So if you do this, you have your center back seam there, and we'll do this too. And so because of how the grain line sits on it, the places where the grain line is straight, you're going to get flatness. And that's why this looks like this. All the places where the diagonal goes across is where you're going to get these wonderful bows like that. So another good example, or another way to think about this, is if you ever looked at a straight skirt before, your straight skirt sits like this. And that's also how this is laying as well. Your straight skirt is gonna be the thing that sits closest to the body. It's you know, it doesn't do a whole lot of dramatic stuff. You're not gonna get a lot of drama from your straight grain. In my opinion, you get more drama from the bias grain line, or using the slightly off bias grain line, which is that one. And that one's slightly confusing to me, so I don't talk about it much, and I don't plan on talking about it much. But if you want to use it, definitely know that there's a third grain line that you could use. So this is the straight grain line. This is going to be kind of like your 45-degree angle, your true bias, and then this is going to be, it's kind of slightly off bias. So just keep in mind if you're looking for another option. So, but anyway, that's where your fullness comes from, that, because the bias and how the skirt flows. So this will be flat here, and then it's going to give you a nice bow there, and then it's going to be flat again here. So that's what it's going to look like, and I hope that didn't look too crazy. I know y'all really can't see that. And you're not going to cut this in the fabric like this. I'm just trying to illustrate how the grain lines move. Oops, this is flat. And then it goes out there, and then it's flat. So shadowing there, and some shadowing here, shadowing there. So, yeah. So anyway, it just depends, and there's still a lot of other nuances, but I wanted to just make this video just to kind of give you a basic overview of what's the difference between a circle skirt and a gathered skirt. And also thank you to, I think the lady's name is pronounced Sura Bailey, I think it was. She sent in this question. It's probably almost been a month ago now, and I answered the question kind of halfway, and then she asked me another question, and then I haven't been able to get back to her yet. So hopefully she'll be happy that I'm making a series of videos based off of some of the questions that she asked me. So anyway, if you're watching, Sura, thank you very much. And that is all for now, you guys. Like I said, I'll be making some more videos, trying to build my audience up, and giving a lot of free content. So I don't have anything I'm trying to sell at the moment or any list that I'm trying to get you on or whatever. Or even any free PDFs or anything. I'm going to try to just put everything on YouTube. Now, if you bought something from me in the past, I'm not going to put that on YouTube. That's going to be kept sacred. But anything else, any other ideas that I can share with you, I'm going to also be trying to take some patterns and sewing those patterns together in a series of videos. So, I don't know, just a lot that can happen now with, you know, my new kind of direction that I'm doing. And I'm also going to be letting you guys see some of the other stuff that I'm working on as well. So it's a whole lot of stuff that's coming in the future. So just hang in there with me. It probably won't be a whole lot of flashy videos or whatever, but I will do my best to keep you guys interested, and keep giving you some good explanations, because that's what you guys say I do best. And I just try to make sure you guys understand it also. Thanks again, and I will see you later.